To give somebody the cold shoulder. So this is a phrase that we use to talk about when you kind of blow somebody off. You ignore that person, or you don't really give that person too much attention. We say you're giving that person the cold shoulder. So for example, if you have a friend who's not talking to you and somebody says, hey, have you talked to Jesse lately? You might say, no, because Jesse's been giving me the cold shoulder lately. This person's ignoring you. They're giving you the cold shoulder. So that's what it means to give somebody the cold shoulder. Everything's all hunky dory. So hunky dory is a weird phrase that we use from time to time. It's not super common, but I did hear it the other day, so I thought it would be a good one to share with you. And that just means like things are fine and dandy, things are going well. We just say everything's all hunky dory. I'm not sure if this is one that you will feel very comfortable using, but you might see it in a TV show and you might think, well, what the heck does hunky dory mean? Well, that's what it means. That's the way it is. That's the way it goes. These are two phrases that we use to talk about basically how things are. You can't change them. So we say, oh, that's just the way it is. That's the way it goes. So those are some common phrases that we use to talk about, being unable to change your circumstances. We'll say, that's the way it is. That's the way it goes. Okay, the new and improved. So these are just two words that go together often in sentences. We'll say, this is the new and improved iPhone, right? Let's say it's new and improved. Or I might say, this is the new and improved video if I remake a video, right? Or you might do some homework in your English class and you might turn it into your English instructor and you might say, hey, here's my new and improved assignment. New and improved. So it's just kind of a fun one to say. It kind of flows off the tongue well. So yeah, new and improved. Brand new. We say that a lot too when something is brand new. It's like completely new, never been touched, never been used before. It has a little bit of a different concept than just new, because something that's new maybe is just new to you, but when it's brand new or brand spanking new, we say, that just means it is like never been used, it's completely new. So it's kind of a fun one to use. Thinking you're God's gift to something. So here's a phrase that we use when we talk about somebody who thinks they're extremely talented or thinks they basically have been, I'm thinking in Spanish, like mandado por Dios, maybe. But the idea is we'll say, oh, this guy thinks he's God's gift to women, for example, right? So that's somebody who's maybe very arrogant with his ability to seduce women. We could say that person thinks he's God's gift to women. Or if somebody's very arrogant about the way they play music, like the guitar or something, we might say, oh, you think you're God's gift to playing the guitar. God's gift. So that's another one I heard recently that I thought was kind of fun and I wanted to share. A disguise and blessing, I almost screwed that one up. A blessing in disguise. So a blessing in disguise, gotta scratch my nose. That's not a blessing in disguise, having an itchy nose. But anyway, a blessing in disguise is a phrase we use. I've heard it sometimes in Spanish and movies, the phrase desgracia con suerte, like a disgrace with luck. It's kind of the same idea. It's basically something that seems like a bad situation, but is actually a blessing in disguise. It's actually a good thing with a disguise, with a costume. Disfrazado, maybe it is something that you don't expect to be a blessing, like if you I don't know, if you miss your flight, right? and you might say, oh no, I missed my flight to go to New York. But it was a blessing in disguise because I met some really nice people at the airport and they let me stay at their house and we had this big crazy party and it was nuts and all this crazy stuff happened and I met so many cool people. So really missing my flight to New York was a blessing in disguise. So that's a blessing in disguise. To piggyback on something, this is a phrase that you'll hear in business a lot. Somebody might say, I'm going to piggyback on that idea. I'm going to piggyback on that idea. And that just means I'm going to like follow up with that idea with something else that kind of complements that idea. A piggyback ride is when somebody jumps on your back, somebody jumps on your back and you carry them on your back. We call those piggyback rides. So sometimes people will say they're going to piggyback on an idea, usually in like business meetings and stuff. They'll say, okay, I'm going to piggyback on that. Means like I'm going to jump on the back of that idea and go along with it. So that's a piggyback. We have a funny usage of the pig in English. We also call where you save your money, like a jar, we call it a piggy bank, right? Because it's a little piggy, usually. When someone doesn't have a prayer, so if you don't have a prayer, it means you don't really have a chance. There's no way that it's going to work for you. And we might say this in competition, like if somebody wants to play me a game and maybe a game of football, a game of soccer, and I might tell that person, okay, let's go. You don't have a prayer. It's like you have no chance of beating me. You don't have a prayer. A little bit of wiggle room. So this is funny. It's good for scheduling this phrase. If you have a little bit of wiggle room, it leaves a buffer basically. So wiggling is like, shifting around like this. This is like a wiggle. You might wiggle in your bed when you're going to sleep at night. We call that wiggling. We do that little thing with your toes, and we'll wiggle your toes. Anyway, wiggling, worms wiggle. They crawl or wiggle. Anyway, wiggle room we'll use a lot in like business environments to talk about leaving a little bit of a buffer zone, right? So if you have wiggle room on your schedule, that means you can run a little bit overtime, you can go overtime, or if things finish early, you allow yourself a little wiggle room to prepare for the next presentation. We call it wiggle room. I mean, you could always just say to allow room, but wiggle room kind of gives this idea of, not having a set schedule or having a little bit of flexibility. It's mainly, flexibility. So a little flexibility with the schedule to have wiggle room. Okay, I hope you enjoyed some of these phrases. Hope you can go out and use them. They're really, really common, and I've heard all of them just recently. That's why I'm sharing them with you, because they are ones that you'll probably encounter, and I don't think they're extremely easy to translate. So I think, it's nice to have a little help along the way. I study languages too, and I know that, some of these phrases, it's like, what the heck does that mean? So, I hope that's helpful for you. Keep studying, keep learning, and we'll see you next time.